Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. How are you?
Damn you.
I saw it was on your report.
Oh, you saw that? Yeah.
Yeah, how are you?
Yeah, very near me.
Hopefully not too near you.
Now we're up to 20, right?
Yeah.
Last few weeks.
2 blocks immediately to the west. Same street number.
Right, well hopefully you're not cut off, is my point.
Hopefully.
Hopefully not. How you doing?
Ran over to Whole Foods to get a really quick bite before here. I was telling myself on the way, you're going to get a salad, right? You're gonna get a salad.
No.
Of course, I got 2 slices of pizza. No.
Yeah. Of course. It's the middle of winter time.
Yeah.
The idea of eating a cold salad is like, do I want to chew on ice? No. I want something hot, nourishing. Oh, yeah. There have been a number of days when I have been in there to get my coffee and croissant in the morning, gone back for lunch, and then stopped by my house and gotten dinner. And you see that, like 3 charges on the same day to Whole Foods, and you go, wait a minute, did they overcharge my card? Oh no, that's true. I did do that.
It is an affordable and good place for breakfast stuff.
Yeah.
You just want to grab a quick coffee and
Yep. Love that they use Apple iPad.
do they.
I've become a big fan of that, especially after, well, it's very secure. After my wallet was stolen in Italy, and the hour that it took for me to get from the train station. I called my credit card company today and get one of my cards for over $1,200. They've gotten 2 transactions in with about 5 minutes. Use iPad, you can't do that. We really are.
What's that?
We're here for their pictures.
Actually,
I had a wonderful holiday. We spent Christmas down in Monroe with our daughter, son-in-law, and grandson, and then drove up to Maine, and they came up for New Year's. So, well, it was cold everywhere, but New Year's Day we woke up, it was 19 below. That was a bit something. There's an antique / consignment shop up in Algonquin. We were wandering through there back in November.
The place in Bristol?
And hanging on this rack was a light new woman's sheepskin coat. Long sheepskin coat. It looked perfect. And it was in my wife's size. And it was $80. So I was like, duh. So she got it. She said, oh, I'm going to get it just to stick in my closet. Well, from Christmas Day until New Year's, I don't think she was out of that coat in more than 20 minutes. Yeah.
I wore, I got this like vest that's like a down vest, but it's like full seasons. I don't busy all the time. I wore that pretty much every day. Luckily it was reversible, so I could change out my clothes. I wore it in the house.
Yeah.
And then I put my down shirt over that all the time. I couldn't warm up. And then today I broke because it finally got out. What's that weird trend I look outside and there's like a geyser coming out of the side of my house?
Gee, now, well, my wife's home. She would have called me. You know.
I mean, it is good. I was home and it was flooding into the window well, going into the window well where everything was frozen, so I couldn't get to the drain.
Right. Well,
Then flowing into my laundry room, as well as the floor. Even, I mean, I don't think it was going for very long before I saw it, and by the time I got the plumber on the phone and they had to be turning off the water supply to the house. It was pretty wet in there. And the hot water radiator heat, so I thought once I turned the water off that it was pretty heat too. So that was what got the plumber. Which I wasn't. I really thought I did, but they said once it closes, your heat is still
Well,
I mean, it's closed until it needs more water, and
Yeah.
more water comes in. So who's to say it wouldn't evaporate to the level where it needed more?
when my wife and I got married, before my wife and I got married in 1980, you know, when dinosaurs roamed the earth.
Yeah, I didn't get married that much longer.
Yeah,
Much after that.
she owned a house down here. I was in Canada and I moved down. And she had bought this two-family house that had ridiculously old heating system in it. And you had to manually top up the boiler during the heating season. So you'd have to go down, monitor the site class, tap water. And I turned the valve on one night. Half asleep. In about 15 minutes. There you go.
Okay. Calling to order the 7 p.m. public hearing on application 999 South Quaker Lane. We will start with, application on behalf of the Quaker Green Association, Inc., requesting modifications to the existing Special Development District Number 48, located at 999 South Quaker Lane, and known as Quaker Green. Roll call, Ms. LeBreau.
Mr. Barnes.
Present.
Ms. Cantor.
Here.
Mr. Davidoff.
Here.
Mr. Dodge.
Here.
Ms. Fay. Ms. Kerrigan. Mr. Sweeney.
Here.
Mr. Winograd. And Mr. Williams.
Here.
Thank you, Ms. LeBreau. Number 3, Mr. Hart, do we have a presentation from, or, yes, come on up.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, my name is Melvin Simon. I am an attorney with the law firm of Cohen, Birnbaum, and Shea in Hartford, Connecticut. I am also a resident of 26 Winterset Lane in West Hartford. I am before you tonight on behalf of the Association of Homeowners of the Quaker Green to advocate in support of their application dated October 27, 2017, to amend the condition of approval of Special Development District Number 48, located at 999 South Quaker Lane, West Hartford, Connecticut. What happened? Oh, okay. I'll continue, and once we get that going, So the application was filed pursuant to Section 177-44 of the zoning ordinance. It proposes to eliminate the condition of approval enumerated 2G2 entitled Access to Beachland Park, which conditioned the Special Development District on appropriate pedestrian easement access to Beachland Park. The application proposes to eliminate this condition and leave in place the permanent fence between Beachland Park and Quaker Green Development and eliminate the pathway and landscaping that was originally depicted in the Quaker Green site details and site planting, which appeared as sheets L1-2 and L1-5D in the original approval. And if we can get our screen, I'll show you those. A little bit of history. On April 24, 2003, the Town Council adopted, with conditions, a petition on behalf of Ginsberg Development CT LLC and WHP Realty LLC for an amendment to the existing Special Development District at 999 South Quaker Lane, requesting that the Special Development District 48 be amended to permit 148 residences to be constructed on the premises together with related improvements. Ginsberg Development proposed the condition of approval in response to questions of Mr. Donatelli at the April 15, 2003 hearing. The access was intended to provide a pedestrian passage for the benefit of residents of Quaker Green and those utilizing Beachland Park. The West Hartford Plan of Conservation and Development that existed then and still today recognized a goal of improving walkability in the community. The zoning ordinance, Chapter 177-1, also sets forth a goal of securing safety and protecting and conserving the existing or planned character of all parts of town and aiding in maintaining stability and value. That is Ordinance Section 177-1D and E. So during the construction of the Quaker Green development, a fence was constructed between Beachland Park and the development in order to secure, for safety reasons, access between the park and Quaker Green. As the site work was completed at the northwest, are we ready with that, or, yeah? It's not. Okay, let me continue. I do have plans with me that I can use rather than the screen. As I was saying, after the site work was completed, at the northwest portion of the property, and townhouses were sold along Park Place Circle, the permanent fence with an opening was installed, providing access to Beachland Park. So we had a fence with opening, allowing passage between Beachland Park and Quaker Green, as the town council had approved. Here we go. So let me. I want to show you quickly. This is an aerial photo of the Quaker Green development, and you'll see circled the area that I've been discussing. So it's Park Place Circle, and there's this area where there was to be a passageway between the park and the development. And then I'll show you. This is one of the sheets that was actually the part of the L12, which was part of the approval, which we have now revised November 20, 2017. So what you're seeing here, again, is a depiction of Park Place Circle, and the northwest corner of the development, where you'll see there are both red and blue depictions on the plan. The red shows what was approved. The blue shows what is existing. So you'll see in red, there was a pathway that was proposed. There were plantings, and then there was an opening in the fence, which was, again, to allow access between Quaker Green, and the expectation was that the residents of Quaker Green would enjoy having direct access to the park. And then I think that there was probably some interest in having people using the park be able to pass through Quaker Green as they might other neighborhoods in the town. So as I mentioned, the fence is built, the opening is there. This is soon after the first townhouses that are in this corner of the development are built. That's the first section that is completed. And the construction of the path is not done. There's still site work to be done. But very soon after the opening and the fence was established, the residents in close proximity to the opening, there are two townhouses that are on either side of the path, reported incidents of a theft and vandalism. Charcoal grill was stolen, and then the vandalism was actually quite significant. There was a paintball incident in which the side of one of the townhouses was completely defaced by a paintball incident. And it's believed that individuals using the park gained access to the development and conducted themselves inappropriately, if you will. And at that time, Ginsburg Development, who was still in control of the property, met with some of the homeowners, particularly the ones in the immediate area of the opening, and determined to close this access. And I don't know whether they intended to do it permanently. As a practical matter, 10 years have passed, and that fence has existed for 10 years with a closed opening. And in the 10 years since the fence was closed, it is my understanding, I'm informed by the town planning department, that no complaints have been received, either from residents of Quaker Green or members of the public or any of the business community that is along New Britain Avenue. In 2015, Ginsburg Development was in the process of completing the last of the buildings at the site and finishing up the improvements, and began to work with the town planner and the department with respect to the performance bond and what was to be recovered and what had to be finished. And this issue came up. That is, what is going to happen with this opening? And the residents of Quaker Green, who at that time were not in control of the homeowners board, voiced concerns because of the history of what they had heard. There have been other instances where people pass over the fence going back and forth into the park. Some of that, in fact, much of that, I think you'll hear some from residents tonight, occurs after hours when technically the park is closed under West Hartford zoning ordinances. So there's some concern about safety and concern about security as well. So on June 22nd of 2016, the declarant, that is Ginsburg Development, ceded control of the homeowners board, as is typical under 47-236 of the Connecticut General Statutes. And at that point, the homeowners elected a board, and the board conducted a meeting among a number of issues. This issue was a hot topic, and they took a ballot vote of the 148 owners of residences, and there was overwhelming support to pursue an application to eliminate the requirement that this opening be constructed. And they initially retained other counsel. There was some interplay back and forth between Ginsburg Development and this other counsel. Things bogged down. Nothing ever happened. Ultimately, I was retained in the early fall of this year, filed the instant application that is now before you, and have, consistent with the processes that you and the town require, met with the town planner, discussed this, met with Assistant Corporation Counsel, solicited the input of the various agencies in town that have the responsibility to provide feedback on this. All of those are in front of you. Bloomfield West Hartford Health District, the TPZ voted on it last week unanimously to recommend this. The town planner has recommended it, and we held a community outreach meeting in accordance with the procedures that the council requires, and that community outreach meeting occurred December 12 of this year, or last year now, I guess it is, and we had 14 residents of Quaker Green show up. We had no abutting landowners. We notified, as in accordance with the zoning ordinance, everyone living within or owning property within 300 feet of the Quaker Green Development. Nobody else showed up. I did receive one email from Hare Associates, who owns the rather large strip mall on New Britain Avenue that abuts the property. On the south side, they were not opposed to the application. We posted signage as we're required to do. I have an affidavit that I will submit to you before you close the hearing today regarding the continuous signage that has been up regarding this hearing. And the only contact I've received has been in support of the application from the residents of Quaker Green. And on behalf of the residents, I ask that you grant the application to amend the Special Development District, eliminating access from Quaker Green to Beachland Park, and the associated landscaping and path be eliminated on the grounds that eliminating the condition is consistent with the purpose of the zoning ordinance, section 17744, and the West Hartford Plan of Development referred to in Chapter 12 of the Town Charter. The application itself complies with the zoning ordinance, and each of the agencies in TPC have indicated no objection, nor has any objection been heard, as I mentioned, from abutting landowners. I welcome any questions you may have and request an opportunity to rebut to the extent that any opposition is presented. And I will submit the affidavit before we close the hearing regarding signage.
Thank you, Attorney Simon.
Thank you.
Does anybody have questions for Attorney Simon? And we're going to take public comment after, and then you'll be free to come back up. So, but does anybody? Mr. Winograd. I can't see down.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You mentioned the testimony of Councilperson Donatello on opening of the spot. Is there more discussion at the time this condition was put on the property as to whose interests are being represented by that path? Are we talking about the residents to be of the development itself, or were we talking about more generally the Elmwood community?
So the transcript reveals a very short, less than a page of discussion regarding this. It was raised by Councilman Donatelli, and the representative of Ginsburg Development immediately said, sure, you want access, we'll provide access. There was some reference to Quaker Green residents. There was some reference to the ability to walk from the park to the commercial district on New Britain Avenue. But no specific indication of a public interest of users of the park, for example. The park does have access from Mayflower to the west. It obviously has access from South Quaker Lane to the east. And there's a circle up to the north, which I can show you, that also provides access. That's not the best depiction of it. Yes, it is, but it's a little small. Manchester Circle that has access to the park.
Right, there is.
But there was not a lot of discussion about whose interest was being protected by this.
Okay. Because I mean, to some extent, what I imagined was that there, whether or not there was some concern, some history of people in Elmwood going through that property to get there in a shorter distance and going all the way down to the main entrance or from Mayflower.
There was, I mean, I know
Yeah.
this, when you look at recall that this was a school.
Right.
So the school, as many of our schools in West Hartford, have access to parks that are nearby or abut the school. So I'm sure that at some point.
Well, at that time, sure. I mean, then it had been private for a while, so that access may have disappeared by the time this
I don't
was
know.
built.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. And do we know, I'm a little hesitant to make decisions based on anecdotal discussions of crime, of vandalism and such. Do we have any? Did we check records? Do we have any accounts of criminal complaints? Is there anything beyond that you can provide in terms of police reports or anything? I certainly take testimony from that. If anybody has that, I'd be happy to hear that as well.
Yep.
Again, just secondhand, there was vandalism, therefore, we should have something. I'd like to see a little bit more if that is available. Certainly, anybody who has direct knowledge of that would be good too.
I don't have a copy of the complaint that was filed with respect to the paintball incident, but I'm aware that there was a complaint filed as a result of the paintball incident.
And was there any? Do you know whether there was any finding that this was being done by anybody from the park.
I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you very
You're
much.
Thank you, Mr. Winograd. Mr. Sweeney?
Thank you. I just have one question. You said there was a vote by the residents?
Yep.
Do you have the actual vote?
A moment. I'm told 67 to 7.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Mr. David?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In 2003, I was chairman of the Town Planning and Zoning Commission, and we were asked to provide a referral on this matter to the council, and we did offer a referral. And I do remember from the evening that there was a discussion of the ability of the residents to access Beachland Park. And at the time, the applicant was seeking to have access to Beachland Park, and that's why the fence was put in with an open gate so that the residents of Quaker Green could easily access the park, so that it was another amenity that the developer could offer the residents of Quaker Green to purchase property here, because then you'd have access to the town swimming pool, because there wasn't going to be a swimming pool on the premises. You'd have access to the walking around the park and to the fields and things of that nature. And there was some discussion, I do recall, that, well, fences work both ways, so people would also, who don't live within Quaker Green, those who are in the park, would then also have easier access to get to businesses that abutted or were adjacent to the development. And at the time, it was seen as favorable for both parties, for those park users who wanted a shortcut to get to the businesses, and the residents who lived in Quaker Green to get to the park. So I do recall, I think that the vote was unanimous in terms of the recommendation to approve that condition. And there was also a discussion about some easements that existed. I think there were 2 utility easements that were discussed that needed to be taken place. So I think that's important to get on the record this evening, because I do have firsthand knowledge of that. With respect to the condition of approval, and I think at the council they said that the fence that was going to be put up would have an opening gate here. So your testimony this evening was that shortly thereafter, the gate was closed by the developer. Is that what you're saying?
That's my understanding. I actually have a depiction of what the gate, or what the fence looks like without, as it looks today, if you want to see it.
That would be helpful. I
Yeah.
think people would like to see that. I
Yep,
think it would be
yep.
helpful.
And I believe it's part of the application that we submitted, but this is what we're looking at.
Right.
So you can see here that this is what appears now in the area where there was to be the opening, and this is the way the depiction was in the approval that the council adopted. And it's my understanding that this depiction is the condition that has existed since 2007.
So I think that's quite helpful. So in 2003, the council says that the picture on the bottom is the way that it needs to work. And in 2007, regardless of what the condition is in the application, the picture on the top is the circumstances which come to play and which are currently in existence now. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, so the issue from a pure zoning standpoint, from my point of view, is why bother putting on conditions of approval, okay, if applicants choose to do what they choose to do without getting an amendment to the condition. So you weren't present in 2007 when they decided to close it. At 2007 would have been the timely scenario as to when this should have been brought forward to the council saying, listen, this thing's not working the way that we anticipated, and we really think it'd be in our best interest for our association members to close this off. Correct?
I would agree with that.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. So I'm not in a position to say it's better that we should have the gate open or we should have the gate. If there hasn't been any problems this evening, I'm more inclined to say we'll let it go. We really didn't hear from anybody objecting to the inability to come through your parcel to get to the adjacent businesses. The adjacent businesses haven't offered any testimony yet saying that they've been adversely affected by the fact that this gate is closed. But I do think it's important to get on the record that there are reasons why the council adopts conditions of approval, such as keeping the gates open. There is a procedure. I do think in the end tonight we'll probably, I know I will vote to support your application to make it what it is, but I'm really not, sort of an uncomfortable scenario in the sense that I don't like to ratify decisions that are contrary to conditions that we've already imposed. It sort of weakens our authority as the chief zoning authority on special development districts. I think that's important to get on the record this evening as well. But I have to look at a bigger picture, and the bigger picture is we do want commercial development. We do want a parcel such as Quaker Green to be successful. We want our residents to feel safe in their own environment, in their neighborhoods. And I think that may override my trepidation here with respect to that issue. The other thing that I think is important to get on the record here is prior to your representing the association, I guess you're representing the association.
Yes.
Is that there were other issues with this development over the years with respect to conditions that were imposed on the property with respect to, we said that we're going to put air conditioning units up on top of the units. Okay, they weren't going to appear on the ground, they were going to be on top of the units. As it turned out, for engineering type purposes or building things, it was not possible. So what happened was there's a segment of the development that you will find what we call, quote, a graveyard of air handling units out there. Okay, and those had to be ratified after the fact. So from my point, having sat here for as long as I've sat here, this is now like time number 2. There may have been a third time that things have been done. There seems to have been a pattern here. So I'm just optimistic this evening that this will be the last thing that previous councils have imposed as conditions that need to be altered or ratified. And it would be good going forward, if there are other conditions that exist on the premises with respect to the development, if somebody would look at those, evaluate those, and see whether or not going forward the development is in compliance with all the remaining conditions so that it doesn't have to come back here. Because what I think is the most important is that this remain a very active, vibrant residential community, and it has been, and that this is what we're looking for. We want people to be in close proximity to our business districts, such as the revised Elmwood district that we have now, where more businesses are located in that corridor. So I think that's all good, and the walkability is all good. So if the residents of the association don't find it to be problematic that they're cutting off their access, a shortcut, I should say, to the park, then I'm fine with that as well. I guess that's something. And I guess that was your testimony this evening, that according to 66 members who were present said yes and 7 said no. So the majority of the people there are fine with that going forward. So I guess that basically summarizes your entire application with respect to what's happening this evening. Did I miss something else?
No, and I think the only thing I would say, and it's consistent with your concern, is that the developer may have taken a view of the approvals different than the council would expect, and the association, when it finally was under the control of the homeowners, looked at this issue. Saw immediately that it should be addressed and retained counsel. And counsel entered into negotiations with the developer. Those negotiations bogged down and nothing got done. I was then brought in as I said, in beginning of September, and by October, I met with the town planner immediately, talked about the issue, addressed it quickly. I'm not aware of other issues that you're referring to. I'm aware that the air conditioning issue. I'm not aware of any other zoning issues. There are other issues that I'm, not going to sort of talk on the public record about, but there are other issues with the developer, and as with a lot of developments, when a board takes over, they do inspect. They've done they're in the process of doing a comprehensive analysis of the improvements of the premises to ensure not only what you're concerned about in terms of zoning, but contract compliance as well, and we're looking at those issues.
Yeah, and I think there was another thing that talked about the materials that was at the end of the driveway needed to be changed. I think there was, it's coming back to me that there was supposed to be, I think there were brick pavers put there, and if you remember the slope to come out of there, it was very icy and very slick, and it really was more of a detriment. It may have looked nice, but in terms of safety, it was very unsafe for drivers on untreated surfaces, and they were skidding right into South Quaker Lane. So I do remember that coming before us too. So over the years, there's been a number of issues, but the bottom line here is whatever is going to make this neighborhood be in harmony with its existing neighbors, and it works best for the residents who are affected by that, I think would be best served. I don't think I have to balance that as to whether or not our other residents of West Hartford who utilize the park, are they going to be adversely affected because this gate is now closed to Quaker Green? And I guess I come to the conclusion that you're advocating that they're not worse off. So
They certainly haven't voiced any concern.
exactly, and I really don't think that they're worse off. So thank you for your presentation. That's
Thank you.
all my questions.
Wow. Okay, Mr. Davidoff. A very comprehensive historic view of the project. And I actually remembered the pavers too, and I was going to add that, but you covered that too. But I agree with a lot of what Mr. Davidoff said, so no need to repeat it. I just want to go to the sign-up sheet to see if there are no more further questions from the council. Go to the sign-up sheet and have the residents speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be presenting the affidavit regarding signage before the...
Thank you. Okay, there's quite a few people. I don't know if sometimes people think this is an attendance sheet and might not want to speak, but I will just say this has to be regarding this public hearing, and you have 3 minutes to speak unless you're speaking for the association, then you have 5 minutes to speak. So I will start, and I will read the next person so you can come on up, and if you decide not to, just say nope, and we'll move on. Dave Charles is the first person who signed it. And the next is Arvind, and Suri, I think.
Thank you. My name is Dave Charles. Apologize for my voice at the moment.
And name and address for the record, sorry.
It's 26 Schoolhouse Drive, Condo 207, and that is part of and that's West Hartford, and that is part of the Quaker Green community. And so I am the president of the board for the Quaker Green Association. And so, so as you can see, we have quite a few people here in support of our amendment. And I think a lot of the things that Attorney Simon covered were done through a lot of research and a lot of talking with a lot of the different residents that are at Quaker Green. And the mass consensus is that people did not feel comfortable with what happened when the gate was open and there was a opening from Beachland Park. So even today, if there was an opening in there, you just can't really get out because there's also a very long fence along the back of the commercial properties on the other side. So even if you got in there, you would still have to go back out and all completely around it and everything. So it's not necessarily a shortcut even with that. But so a major concern for the people that live there is that they're bringing up their families, and they want to be secure and not have to deal with some of the things that had to happen. There were even complaints about when there were events at Beachland Park, people were actually coming in when there was no parking in the park and parking their cars in the community. And so that wasn't something that was really attractive for everybody either. So, so all in all, I think people feel really good and they're here to support this. And to have this kind of still be outstanding and not and have that possibility of it being open would be a real challenge for everybody. So on behalf of a lot of people, and I think they will talk about it, this is something that everybody really supports.
Thank you, Mr. Charles.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Suri, I think that's right. I'm not sure. The next person is Ken Talgi? No, Leah Clayton then. Okay, Lisa O'Hyan? O'Hyan? Yep, okay.
Madam Mayor and council members, I would like to introduce myself as Dr. Arvind Suri. I reside at 90 Park Place Circle in West Hartford, a part of Quaker Green townhome and condominiums for the past 7.5 years. Ours is a community with ever-moving families into the neighborhood, either from neighboring towns or from across the country. We have an unusually high number of young families with young children and who can be seen walking and strolling around the community with their parents all around the year. As a father of a toddler when I moved here, he's 12 now, I fear the lack of security if this gate of which we are here to discuss was open. My opinion, I've heard some issues with Beachland Park from my neighbors, especially around dusk in the last few years that I have resided here. My opinion is that Beachland Park is a valuable asset to our neighborhood, Elmwood, and it has a perfectly open and visible entrance to from South Quaker Lane, which is often well patrolled by our local police, and of which people from our neighborhood, both from Elmwood and from Quaker Greens, they use it on a regular basis to walk their pets or their little ones. I, as a responsible resident of West Hartford and of Quaker Greens community, would appreciate if the town council considers our appeal favorably and closes the point of entry to the park in question for good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Suri. Okay, Ms. O'Hyan and Naomi Young next? No? And Jonathan Zellinger? No? Okay, we'll go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm Lisa O'Hyan. I live at 45 Park Place Circle, which on the original thing that was parcel number 36, which is on the west side. So I'm right very close to the entrance that was open. I don't agree with some of the dates that were given. We moved in December of 2010. Summer of 2011, there were many, many instances where we would see people coming through that opening that was still in the gate in there in 2011, coming through our backyard, drinking at night, throwing beer cans, etc. There were even times when I could look out my bedroom window and found a young couple doing their lovely thing in my backyard. So the safety issue is huge. There were people who were walking through from the park to get out by Walgreens. They couldn't, there was no reason why they couldn't go out through the entrance on Mayflower or on South Quaker. And it is a big, big safety issue. My grandchildren are there, and I don't want that type of access being open for them, for their safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Hyan. And Jack, no, I think you said no, I'm not sure. Naomi Young, no. Jonathan, Robbie my 49 Park Place Circle. No? Yes? No? Okay. And then the other person at 49, I'm guessing they're both. Elena Sada. Charles, oh, yep. And Charles Hilborn is next, if Charlie's here.
Thank you. I'm Elena Sada, and I live at 12 Schoolhouse Drive. And I just want to say that I think none of the businesses opposed. We speak to them all the time because we're the best clients because we keep the businesses alive for them. So they're in support. Thank you very much once again just for providing such a leadership to the town. Most of us are international professionals. We lived in many countries, many places, so we always talk about how West Hartford is still one of our best places, residences. So thank you very much for that. So far, you've heard a very compelling argument of why the property owners want to keep the fence the way it is, why it disrupts something that's working so well. I would like to offer an additional reason for why it should stay as is. I am not sure if you have experiences with children with special needs. So I have two, and my 9-year-old doesn't process things the way most of us do. So for him, a fence is a limit, and an opening is an access. So for a brief period of time, a tree knocked down an area of the fence, and I lost him. In about 10 minutes, I lost him. So you can imagine the anguish, and maybe other parents in the same situation will experience if we have a gate into our backyard. So I beg that you allow us to keep our backyards as safe as they are now. Thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, Ms. Sada. Charles Hilborn, Lilith Solis? Okay, thank you, Charlie. Okay, Lilith Solis, Mayor Friedman? And Mark Dombrowski.
Yeah, I'm aware. Good evening, Madam Mayor, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for hearing us out. My name is Dr. Mayor Friedman. I live at 36 Park Place Circle, West Hartford. It's depicted here as number 34. So I agree. We are in a vibrant community. We are additionally robust and extremely diversified. Multiple languages are spoken there. We are very much inclusive. It's probably the best place in town for Halloween trick-or-treating. We give out really good candy. You can put that on the record. But we are asking for this to close for many of the reasons described. Personally, I live at 34, and this path is literally arcing from my backyard all around my unit to the front door within 10 feet of me. I mean, the way the rules of the condominium are, I can't put up an additional fence. I can't put up any distraction. Literally, everyone will just walk right by and look into my windows. I'd have no privacy. Again, I grew up in New York City, so I'm used to that, but I think this is not the nature of West Hartford. So thank you again. I'm in full support. I think most of the people here are, and I don't think this is truly a shortcut for anyone. And I think the decision was made without thinking about the residents. I don't think it was harmful intended, so I think it just wasn't thought out practically as to what life is like in 2018. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Friedman. The next person, I'm sorry, I can't read your name, 34 Schoolhouse. Don't know if you want to speak. Okay, Marilyn Davis. Okay, Shiji Isaac. Okay, Alan Matamana. Okay, thank you. Sorry about this pronunciation. Kaiying Hong. Okay, and Ashish Arora.
Good evening, respected members of the councils, and thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Dr. Ashish Arora, and I live in 39 Park Place Circle unit, which is quite adjacent to 36th unit of Dr. Mayor Friedman, and it's one of the other side. This is the Beachland Park. These are the two properties, 36 and 39. And what I would say to start with is I'm concerned. I'm concerned. I came in this community 2 years back, and ever since I bought the property, I've been concerned. And the reasons for my concern are, like my wife and I have two kids, 2-year-old and a 6-year-old. I did not know any of those incidents of the vandalism ever since I bought the property. Once I bought the property, those things were brought to my attention. And had I known them before, I would have probably not taken that decision. Well, nothing has happened so far. For the last 2 years, we've been enjoying this community with everybody. And But I mean, for so far, we love this community, and I think just going back for last whatever time, 10 years, 7 years, the gate is closed. Nothing bad has happened, and we do know something bad has happened before. Although we don't believe in anecdotal evidence or those things, no reportings were made. But to my mind, I don't think we have to wait for the reporting for something bad to happen if we go back to the same scenario. And everybody kind of seconds that decision of keeping it closed for safety reasons, and so do I. And I really appreciate your time and this opportunity for us to put our concerns on the table. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Aurora. And then the last person that signed up is Regarajan Janakaraman. I'm sorry. And is there anybody else that would like to come up and speak to this public hearing? No? Okay. Thank you very much. Are there further questions from the council for Attorney Simon? No? Okay. And with that, we will close the public hearing. Oops, I'm sorry. No, we have to read into the record. I apologize. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. LeBreau. Read into the record a letter dated January 8, 2018 from TPZ recommending approval, and letter dated December 15, 2017 from DRAC also recommending approval. I'm sorry? Is there anything?
No.
further? Okay.
Unless
Oh,
there are
did you
other
want to,
questions.
you wanted to talk about the signage? or
I did
you
submit the
that?
affidavit
Okay,
regarding
got it.
signage to Corporation Council.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, so if we're all done, we'll close the public hearing. We will take a 5-minute break and start the council meeting. Thank you. I know, isn't it great?
No
I don't
John
live there.
Smiths in there.
That's cool.
It's very cool.
Yeah.
But when it comes to reading attendance, it's like, so did you ever see? Key and Peele. Do you remember Key and Peele? Oh my God. So you have to Google, go on YouTube or something, Key and Peele, and do substitutation. So it's about,
I just wanted to
this black teacher who taught for a long time, and now he's retired, he's gonna sub in a white school. And every single name, like, your name is Jaqueline, so it just gets madder and madder, it's every single name. And it's so funny, because that is the truth, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and I would probably guess I would with the heavy opposition.
Is it cold in here?
I don't know, I was a little chilly, but it was a warm up.
Well, yeah, and during the hearing, then there was the deliberation. And I remember during the deliberation, one councilman who happens to live on Manchester Circle on the other side of the park, well, if you're going to put back in Elmwood Plaza. And, the hearing's closed, and, counsel for the applicants about the first one, like that, they don't know that. They couldn't put it in, they don't know that. I was able to get up as a staff comment, and if memory serves, not on their property, so you can't. So it couldn't have been. It had to have been approval or for the use of the association. Right.
Yeah, whoever you want.
Right.
How you feeling? Happy New Year.
All right, well, yeah, by all means, wait.
Okay, I will, yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
I remember.
I think we met.
No. So I remember getting up to go. I remember
All I lost them.
It's the blue glass building that's on the corner of Trumbull and Brook. I was just before that, I was referring to saying.
I don't know. I mean, I don't even know. So then, I don't know. I was in the hospital for 4 days. I think it was 2 days. I might What's that? Oh, is there a place down there?
I know I butchered a couple of them. All right. Who we missing? Lamb, Beth, Chris. We good? No. No, it's just it is the precedent of conditions of an approval of an SDD, but not. They handled it the right way. Once the residents, the developer is a little bit of an issue. It sounds like more than us.
Thank you.
But I remember the whole. It's nice to see you. Thank you. Yeah, it's going to be fine. Thank you for coming and for speaking. Yeah.
Bye-bye, thank you.
Bless you, bless you.
Yeah, I know we've heard about
That's
this
the whole,
for a number of years, these issues that they've had.
You know what? They
But
picked up
sometimes-
this, and this is for the town council meeting, but I'm betting.
Yeah, they're all the
So
same.
just
There's
wanna
nobody.
say if anybody
Yeah. They were all of these people were on the list for the. Sorry. January 9th, Town Council meeting to order. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And then we will go to roll call. Ms. LeBreau, thank you.
Mr. Barnes.
Present.
Ms. Cantor.
Here.
Mr. Davidoff.
Here.
Mr. Dodge.
Here.
Ms. Fay.
Here.
Ms. Kerrigan. Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Winograd. And Mr. Williams.
Here.
Thank you, Ms. LeBreau. Number 4, Ms. Kerrigan.
Thank you, Madam. Oh, sorry. Town Council meeting 12/12/2017.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Thank you. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. The public forum section of our town council meeting is for items that have not been subject to a public hearing, but are on the agenda, and you have 3 minutes to speak. If there's anybody here that would like to speak to something on the agenda that was not the subject of a public hearing? No. Okay, we will move on then to number 7. Oh, no, number 6. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to place items 16 through 20 on the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Number 7, Ms. Kerrigan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to approve application on behalf of the Quaker Green Association Incorporated requesting modifications to the existing special district number 48 located at 99 South Quaker Lane and known as Quaker Green.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. This was the subject of a public hearing. That's why we're running a little bit late. I just wanted to start off by thanking Attorney Simon for coming to us and presenting the amendment to the Special Development District, which is enclosing the fence, securing the fence, between the access between Beachland Park and 999 South Quaker Lane, Quaker Green. And I just wanted to thank the residents and the association president for coming out, Mr. Charles, for coming out and speaking so respectfully. It was clear that this is a passionate item and really important to their well-being and their security. We don't take lightly changing a condition of approval on a special development district. And this has a very long history. But with that, I want to, again, thank the residents for coming out and speaking. So once they took control of the association, the first thing that they did was come to the town council to change that approval rather than going on as when we might not have realized it until it was, again, a few years down the road. So I really want to thank them for that. And I'm sure there are a few other of my colleagues that would like to say a few words, but we don't recommend any developer doing anything that is not a condition of approval. Please come to us. We're reasonable people. And if there is a reason to change it, then you go to staff and they will explain it to you and then to us if it makes sense. So thank you so much. Anybody else? No, Mr. Davidoff.
It should not be a surprise, Madam Mayor. I do want to comment on it. I'd like to thank Attorney Simon for his presentation this evening. It was very good to go through the history of the parcel and to enumerate what the condition of approval was and how we got to where we are today. I also appreciate the number of residents from Quaker Green who came this evening to speak on the record to ask us to make the change this evening, and for a variety of reasons. I think safety being the most significant reason to make this change and to have that gate no longer be accessible is a very good reason. As was noted during the public hearing, it was proposed to have an opening so that residents could access the park and access the swimming pool and have recreational activities and playgrounds that weren't going to be part of the Quaker Green development, that they were just going to be adjacent. And conversely, residents would be able to have easier access to adjacent and abutting businesses. But as become the course of over time, it's been realized that people don't really need to have it shortcut through this development, and there's other ways to access the playground, the pool, and the adjacent businesses. And in the nature of safety for the community, it'd be best that the gate remain closed. I do agree wholeheartedly with Mayor Cantor this evening that we don't impose conditions of approval on special development districts lightly, and that the expectation from the town staff and from the council as the chief zoning authority on special development district would be that they would be adhered to, and that if an applicant would wish to change those conditions that are adopted, that the proper way to do them is not to take the action first and then ask for ratification from the council after. It would be get the approval first and then take the steps that the council says are okay to alter the condition. I think that's the reason we even go through having this hearing process. Otherwise, there really would be no reason to sit on all these petitions. But in sum, it was a job well done. I do appreciate so many of the residents taking a very active role in protecting their own community and putting their interests first. And I also think it's important to get on the record this evening that there were no members of the greater community who spoke in opposition, that they felt that their rights or things were being compromised by not having that gate open, and I think that's important. So for all those reasons, I will vote in support of this application this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Davidoff. Any other comments? All right, with that, we will take a roll call vote. Ms. LeBrun?
Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
Ms. Cantor?
Yes.
Mr. Davidoff?
Yes.
Mr. Dodge?
Yes.
Ms. Fay?
Yes.
Ms. Kerrigan?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Winograd?
Yes.
And Mr. Williams?
Yes.
It's unanimous.
Thank you very much to the applicant and the residents. Okay, number 8, Ms. Kerrigan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move adoption of a resolution
authorizing the town manager to execute an amendment to the agreement between the state of Connecticut and the town of West Hartford for the design of the multi-use Trout Brook Trail 5, Phase 5.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Mr. Hart.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
So looking at page 19 and 20 of tonight's packet, as council will recall, we've received a grant from the state to construct Phase 5 of the Trout Brook Trail project. The design of that section is currently underway. We've received a number of comments from DEEP that we need to respond to. And in order to provide adequate time to do that and to sufficiently work through that process, we need to extend this grant agreement. We did bring this to the council's attention this past fall. There were some outstanding questions that we had to review. We recently discussed this with the Community Planning and Physical Services Committee at their last meeting. And we're seeking the council's authorization to allow us to extend the agreement so that we can complete the design process and preserve this important grant funding. And staff is available tonight. If you have any questions, we've got Mr. McGovern available for that purpose.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. And there are questions for the council? Oh, Mr. David.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So at our last time that this was on the agenda, there was significant discussion as to the maintenance agreement and who was going to be responsible for what and what the cost was. And according to your memo, that part is still being worked on.
Yes, those discussions are underway. They are proceeding somewhat slowly, and I think that's due in part to just the staff burden at DEEP, some staff reductions there, et cetera. I don't know if Mr. McGovern wants to come forward and elaborate at all. Okay. Very good. Dwayne Martin, our town engineer.
Good evening, everyone. Essentially, we've been working on this for a while, and it's been radio silence from the DEP regarding our trail design. I'm suspicious that it has to do with the lack of a maintenance agreement. We did have a meeting with the DEP several months ago, and it was in response to some of the issues regarding the maintenance agreement. We made an offer to see if they'd be interested in transferring the property to the town. That way we wouldn't have to do a formal easement for the trail construction or maintenance. There were stipulations. Of course, we didn't want to take ownership of certain maintenance obligations along with that conveyance of the property. But to my knowledge, nobody has heard back with regards to even that offer.
That's interesting. Not surprising, but interesting. Mr. David.
So I just want to make certain I'm clear. So if we vote in support of this resolution this evening, authorizing you to execute some type of agreement with the state of Connecticut for the design of this trail, how does that maintenance agreement portion of the issue, because that was in that agreement, it was a provision, how does that play into what's happening here? Because we don't have the entire agreement in the packet again here this evening. Are we bifurcating that issue out?
No, these are two separate agreements. So the agreement before you tonight just relates to the grant funding.
Okay.
So it would extend the time period we have available so we could work through the design issues.
Okay, so at the last meeting, they were combined or they weren't combined?
They weren't combined. I think there was a concern on the part of some counselors as to where that other agreement was heading.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
All set? Okay, thank you. Any further questions for staff or Mr. Hart? Okay. If none, then all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. All right, number 9, Mrs. Kerrigan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that we set for a public hearing on February 27, 2018 at 6:45 in the Legislative Chamber and refer to TPZ and DRAC, an application on behalf of Ringgold Crescent Partners LLC for Special Development District designation for the 1.33 acre Patrizzi nursery site at 35 Ringgold. I don't know why I think of Ringgold, but anyways, that's a beer, that's a whole different thing. And 34 Crescent Street in the RM-1 zone to remove the existing structures and create the townhomes at Ringgold Estates, a community of 25 townhouses in 5 buildings
Mark Lovely and Anthony M. Valenti, members and co-trustees of the Richard Patrici Trust, owner.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Number 10, Ms. Kerrigan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that we set for public hearing on February 13, 2018, at 6:30 in the Legislative Chamber and refer to TP and Z and DRAC, an application on behalf of Steel Road LLC seeking approval of an amendment to Special Development District Number 139, located at 243 Steel Road and known as the Residences at Steel Road, requesting approval of a new 30-unit residential building in the northwest area of the property and associated site improvements, including landscape, parking, and stormwater management design changes.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Number 11, Ms. Kerrigan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that we adopt a resolution authorizing the town manager to complete all necessary actions associated with the FFY 2017 State Homeland Security Grant Program.
Second.
Mr. Hart. Motion's made and seconded, but description.
Thank you, Mayor. So we've got a little
Thank you.
write-up on page 23 and 24 of the packet. This is a federal grant program that's administered by the state and coordinated locally by the Capital Region Council of Governments. And we're seeking authorization to participate in the program here. We are part of DEMIS Region 3. It's comprised of 41 municipalities altogether. And CROG is about to begin its process to allocate the grant between the various member towns. In the past, we've received this funding, and we've used it for training purposes as well as to acquire various types of equipment. So essentially, we're seeking authorization to participate in this process coordinated by CROG in order to receive these federal grant funds.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Any questions? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. And now back to Mr. Hart for reports from the town manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I've distributed copies of my report. I know you've got quite a volume of paper at your places tonight, but hopefully you can find it. We haven't met in a little while, so got a bit to talk about, but I'll try to move through it quite expeditiously. So starting off with council business, we've got a number of meetings over the course of the next couple of weeks. Tomorrow we've got 2 committee meetings. We're going to start the day at 8 a.m. with the Finance and Budget Committee. We'll be talking about the audit report, bond rating, and a couple of other things. Then tomorrow evening at 6:30, our new subcommittee on community and economic development will meet. We'll be talking about the community engagement process that we would like to use to get community feedback regarding future uses of the former UConn West Hartford campus property. Public Safety Committee was not able to meet last week due to the storm, so that has been rescheduled for this Thursday, the 11th. We're going to receive, it'll be more of a standard agenda. We're going to get reports from police and fire departments. We're still working on the paramedic billing issue at a staff level. We're not prepared to bring that back to the committee just yet. We're hoping to do that in February. Community Planning and Physical Services will meet next week on the 17th. Still finalizing the agenda for that. We'll look to post that towards the end of the week. Administration and Technology Committee will meet on January 22nd, and Human Services on January 25th. Moving on, I've talked to a number of you, especially new council members, about conducting an orientation for you. It's something the mayor and I are very interested in. We'd like to go over topics such as FOI, as well as your land use role, committee responsibilities, the budget process, as well as other topics. So I'm working with Mr. Allaire and the mayor to finalize the content for this session, and we'll have more information available prior to the next meeting. I know we had tentatively talked about a meeting on the 18th. That date is not going to work, but we will schedule something in the not-too-distant future. Moving on to staff reports, really want to commend our staff. They've been quite busy with respect to storm control operations. Unfortunately, much of this occurred over the holidays, both Christmas and New Year's. And I've got a fair amount of detail on the most recent storm, which was most severe. the one from last week. And you can read this at your leisure, but we've got some good information about the amount of staff hours that we utilized as where we stand with respect to the overtime budget as well as the treated salt budget. And we've had about 8 storm-related events this season to date. Really want to commend our public works, plant and facilities, as well as our public safety staff for the excellent job they did to keep us safe during this holiday season. Really think they did an excellent job. With this severe cold weather, we've also experienced a rash of water main breaks, and MDC is responsible for those and does respond. There were 19, and then about an hour ago I got an email. We're now up to 20. We've had 20 leaks in our town alone since December 22nd. And the issue is caused, many of you may know, in a deep freeze, and then when things warm up a bit, typically that's when the breakages become more acute with frost heaves, et cetera. So the MDC is dealing with that as well as our residents. The new tax law, we had a flurry of activity in the tax office the last week of the year. I want to commend the staff for staying open and handling the business that transpired. Corporation Counsel has a more detailed report on that item, so I'll defer to Mr. Allaire when we get there. Moving on, we've hired some new police officers as well as a new dispatcher. Want to thank them. Ian Rinaldi, Blake Zimmerman, Maria Albini, Generoso Casarelli. They're all new officers. They're now at the police academy. They'll be graduating this June, and then they'll have a 4-month field training program once they start here. And our new dispatcher, Nicole Salter, she has some experience as well. She started on New Year's Day, so glad to have them all on board. This past weekend, we held a reopening at the Cornerstone Aquatic Center. Wanted to be able to recognize the team there for the good work that they've done with some recent improvements, including fully accessible family changing rooms. We've also upgraded the front lobby area. The fitness classroom, that studio, as well as the fitness room itself. A number of council members and folks from the community were able to attend, and we greatly appreciate your support. Next item I wanted to touch base on is Christmas tree collection, something that we do every year. Public Works is engaged in that. That will continue through Monday the 15th, that program. If folks would prefer to bring their tree to our Brixton Street facility, they can certainly do that Monday through Friday. We do not have any weekend hours at this time of the year, but they can certainly bring the tree to that location, 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. Also, since we're talking a lot about winter weather, I want to remind the community of the importance of clearing public sidewalks. Under our local ordinance, folks need to clear the sidewalk along their property line within 12 hours after the storm or sunrise, whichever's later. And we also request our community's support in keeping areas around hydrants clean, and the extent to which folks can shovel around those if they're adjoining one of their properties, we greatly appreciate it. So that completes my report. We do have upcoming events and announcements, which the mayor will address when we get to her item. Happy to take any questions, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. Questions for the town manager? No? All right. Well, enjoy it.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go on to 13 announcements. I also just want to echo Mr. Hart's thank you to very, very difficult conditions, especially during the holidays and time away from family, to Public Safety, Public Works, Plants and Facilities, and our finance office for the really extraordinary work they did during a very, very busy time, and unexpected, a lot of it. Okay, announcements. Safest city in the U.S. Safehome.org announced that the town of West Hartford made its 2017 list of safest cities in the U.S. and ranked number 15 in Connecticut. It's conducted similar studies in the past. This year's organization went a step further and used a variety of data and sources and statistics, including the FBI's latest report of how many and what types of crimes occurred, crime trends, law enforcement ratio, demographics, population density, unemployment rate, income, education level, etc., to come up with this scoring. To learn more about the methodology, you can go to safehome.org. 22nd annual celebration of Dr. Martin Luther King's life, Jr.'s life. Join us on the 22nd for the annual celebration. For the 22nd annual celebration on Monday, January 15th at 10 to 11:30. Each year, the event that pays tribute to Dr. King's ideals and vision grows more popular and inspiring. The celebration is free and open to all ages. This year's keynote speaker is Jay Williams, president of the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving. The Reverend Maya Douglas of Asylum Hill Congregational Church of Hartford will give the opening prayer. I will be welcoming people, and Tammy Exum, who served on the Board of Education from 2013 to 2017, will serve as the Master of Ceremonies. Each year, 2 students from the public high school are selected to give the student perspective on Dr. Martin Luther King. This year, Grace Williams of Conard High School and Dion Hightower of Hall High School have been selected. Musical performances will be provided by the Conard High School Jazz Combo, Voices of Bristow Middle School, and Conard's Voices of the World Choir. Immediately following the celebration, attendees are invited to stay for an interactive discussion on race, equity, and action steps that build on the messages that will be shared on this holiday. It really is a great program. And feel free to bring children that can sit through an hour-and-a-half program. Thinking Beyond Disabilities, a community conversation about intersectionality. Join us for an evening thoughtful conversation about disabilities, access, and intersectionality of race on Monday, January 15th at Solomon Schechter Day School. From 7 to 8:30. The panel conversation will highlight the perspectives of 4 Connecticut leaders who have dedicated their lives to advocating on behalf of people with disabilities and their families. This conversation will emphasize how race and culture intersect. The evening will culminate with an audience Q&A. Fracking waste in Connecticut and local town ordinances. Jen Siskin, a Connecticut coordinator of Food and Water Watch, will give an educational presentation entitled Fracking Waste in Connecticut and Local Town Ordinances on Wednesday, January 10th at 7 p.m. in room 314 of Town Hall. Anyone interested in the topic is encouraged to attend. Presentation is sponsored by the West Hartford Clean Energy Commission. For more information, contact Gary Bent at gdbent@earthlink.net. Children's Charity Ball. Tickets are going fast for 2018 Children's Charity Ball on Saturday, January 20th at the Marquee in downtown Hartford, former G. Fox building. It's the signature fundraiser for the Bridge Family Center and helps fund critical support programs for children, adults, and families throughout the greater Hartford region, including vital mental health counseling. The Elegant Black Tie event features a cocktail reception, sit-down dinner, live and silent auctions, and dancing for 375 guests. For tickets, go to www.bridgefamilycenter.org. Call for proposals. 2018 How-To Festival. West Hartford's second annual How-To Festival is scheduled for Saturday, March 24th, 2018. Show your neighbors what you know at the How-To Festival. To submit your proposal, go to westhartfordlibrary.org. Over 3,000 people are expected to attend this all-volunteer community event featuring 50 local experts, enthusiasts, hobbyists, and professionals sharing their particular passions with others. And also, which is not on my report, is the Foundation's fundraiser, West Hartford's Cooking, on March 24th. I'm not sure what time. I think it's 5:30 to 8. But we will have details for you on that in February. Anybody else have announcements? Mr. Barnes.
I have one, thank you. I just wanted to highlight one of the items in the town manager's report. It was a lengthy report, so I'm glad he didn't cover everything. But one thing I did want to point out is the West Hartford Public School Mentoring Program, and specifically January is National Mentor Month. It's a program that I've participated in for the last 4 years. I believe Mr. Sweeney is a mentor as well to a student here in town, and it's a great program. It's flexible. Generally, you meet once a week, anywhere from 30 minutes to 45 minutes with a student. It could be anywhere from first, second grade, all the way through high school. In advance of starting the program, there's a Mentoring 101 program. It's included in the notes. One of them is coming up on Tuesday, March 13th of this year at Conard High School. If anybody's interested, contact Carol Wilkes. She oversees the program, and she's a great resource here in our community. So I highly recommend it if anyone's interested in getting involved with kids in our community. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Anybody else? It's a lot better than I did 7th grade detention. That's a lot better. Mentoring is a lot better. Okay. Number 14, reports from Corporation Council. Mr. Allaire.
Good evening and Happy New Year, everyone. Before I forget, in addition to hydrants, if you have a catch basin in front of your house and you can do it safely, freeing up the catch basin allows the water to run freely into it and prevents icing in the street. So that, if you have a chance, my PSA for the night. We do need, unfortunately, an executive session. It's going to be an update with respect to 2 items of litigation, Gilknight versus Town and Muchette versus Town. I will not be asking for a vote, for those of you in the audience wondering. It's purely just an update on the status of those matters regarding strategy and negotiations. And I do want to cover, as Mr. Hart mentioned, an issue that came up at the end of the year, last year, which is the issue of prepayment of taxes. As many of you know, I don't know how you could have avoided knowing, at the very end of 2017, 2017, the federal government passed a tax bill, which was, I think, 5,000 some odd pages long by the time it was done, much, if not all of which becomes effective with the 2018 calendar year. One of the major issues was that the bill changes and eliminates the exemption for local taxes, state and local taxes, the so-called SALT exemption in many ways. Local property taxes being an exception to that in some ways, and it's complicated. So suffice it to say, it's complicated. And it happened right at the end of the calendar year. A number of news media outlets were reporting every 20 minutes that you should contact your local property tax officials to find out if you could prepay your 2018 taxes in 2017. A number of states and a number of towns within those states were accepting property taxes. Then the IRS issued an advisory opinion, which threw a monkey wrench into the works. I read the advisory opinion. It was very hastily written. It does not have the force of law. It is exactly that. It's advisory. It does not clearly address any particular situation. It tries to give examples which, quite frankly, are not helpful in Connecticut. So the issue, as far as I'm concerned, remains open. A number of municipalities in Connecticut chose not to accept property tax payments in advance. They did so for reasons which I'll get into in a minute, but my office opined to the town, to the administration, initially to the tax collector, because that's where the questions were coming in, and later, as the project or the issue became more elevated, to the town manager, and I spoke with the mayor as well, that I saw no reason why we could not accept such payments. And so West Hartford was in the minority in accepting them, but we collected, I believe, $4.2 million, roughly, in tax prepayments. So I wanted to give you a sort of a rationale for why we did what we did, why we were a bit different. Some would argue less conservative. I would argue perhaps more conservative in our approach. We start with a couple of basic principles. The first is we don't give our taxpayers tax advice, federal tax advice. Never have, never will. That's not our job. When a taxpayer completes their federal tax return, they're taking a position. They're taking the position that I gave the town a certain payment. That payment is deductible
as against my federal tax, and that discussion is between them, their tax advisor, and ultimately the IRS. The very fact that the IRS issued its advisory opinion demonstrates exactly why we don't give one of the many reasons why we don't give tax advice. Tax law changes, it changes fast, it's complex, it's unclear, and for us to be in the middle of that makes no sense whatsoever. Second principle, we don't ever like to turn down money. If somebody walks in the door and wants to give us money, we want to take it, like anybody else would. And third, we clearly have express statutory authority to collect taxes. There's no question about that. There is also no question that we collect tons of money every year that is not tax. We collect and hold grants, parking tickets, fees for municipal services, receipts of gifts. Quite simply, collecting revenue other than non-tax revenue is necessary to the exercise of what we do every day. So the notion that we could only collect money if it was clearly a tax and only under the auspices of the tax statutes makes no sense, at least not in my view. Some municipalities, however, took that position. Others took the position that they didn't have the fiscal controls in place that we do as a larger municipality, and they weren't able to account for that money. And I totally understand that. I totally respect that position, that for some towns it just didn't make financial sense or practical sense to collect that money. But from our standpoint, we had the fiscal controls in place. Finance was confident that they could manage to maintain accounting. So for us, the question was strictly the legal question of, is there any reason why legally we cannot accept this money? With all of that as the backdrop, we took the position that if we said a taxpayer cannot legally give us this prepayment, that necessarily carries with it the implication that we're giving tax advice. We're telling you, no, we're not going to accept this tax prepayment because it's not tax deductible. We're jumping to that conclusion inherent in that decision. It also ignores the fact that we can accept payments from people which may not be tax payments. They may be categorized as other revenues by the town. They may be categorized as other expenses by the taxpayer. The fact that we only have ever gotten this question this year demonstrates that really the question is being raised in the context of the change of the federal tax law. Nobody has ever asked before, gee, can I prepay my taxes? And nobody's ever said, no, you can't. It's purely and inherently part of that federal tax question, and we don't give tax advice. So in my view, for that reason alone, that was enough to say we'll accept them. The other thing that it ignores, and I think some tax collectors ignore this the way our statutes are written, is the town's tax year for 2018 began on October 1, 2017, when we finalized our grand list. Now, we don't sign it until January, but as of October 1, 2017, we have a statutory lien on every piece of property in the town for the taxes on that grand list. The amount of the taxes haven't been set. The amounts of the payments haven't been set. The mill rate, none of that has been set yet. But our lien is as of October 1, 2017, or last year rather. So we do have a lien. To that end, we do have a tax obligation. There is each individual sitting at this table who owns property has a tax obligation to the town as of last October. I think that is a legitimate basis, if I was the taxpayer, for arguing that that tax, though the amount isn't fixed, my obligation is fixed. And finally, we took the very practical approach that people pay by mistake. They make overpayments on a regular basis. We routinely have tax appeals where we settle the tax appeal, and in lieu of refunding taxes that have been overpaid while the appeal's been pending, people take a credit against future taxes. taking the position that, no, we can't accept prepayments of tax, inherently effectively leads you to the conclusion that every one of those would have to trigger an automatic and immediate refund, which I can find no authority for in the statutes, no justification. So with all of those reasons in mind, we took the position, understanding that it's the minority view, that we can accept prepayments. We have accepted prepayments. Going forward, I'm not sure that this is an issue which will ever be capable of repetition, but I would reach the same conclusion today. And I wanted to take a few minutes to explain it to you and our residents so they understand where things stand. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Lalare, and yeah, it was very, very active, and I appreciate all your research and guidance on this, because it was a bit of a rushed and difficult time for everybody to respond to our residents' requests. So, any other? Gotcha. Oh, Liam, Mr. Sweeney, sorry.
I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Lalare for that extensive explanation, and I think this is a great demonstration of how fantastic our town staff is. I think we were one of like 4 municipalities in the entire state that were able to do this. I think, again, it just shows how great this town is and how flexible the staff can be, because I think that Friday we were supposed to be closed, right? And they were open. And just one quick question that I think we had heard this number, but we didn't have clarification on was, of the 4.2 million that was collected, how much was that for 18 and as opposed to 17?
I think the 4.2 million was prepayment of taxes which would ordinarily be received in July of 2018.
Okay.
Correct.
Thank you so much. And again, great work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Mr. Barnes?
Thank you. In the town manager's report, it's identified as 4.3 million, 4.2, whatever. Is that money going to be segregated in the account? And 2, is there the possibility that that money will have to be returned during the first half of 2018, depending on any clarification under the federal tax law? Do you speak to the first part?
My understanding is, number one, yes, it is being segregated out, at least internally, account by account. I mean, it's being held in a separate fund, but, you know, each taxpayer's account has a credit associated with it, if you will. As for would we return it, my understanding is also that if a taxpayer comes to us and says, I've changed my mind, I want my money back, that we will write them a check and give them that money back. That may happen, particularly if we get further clarification from the IRS, but taxpayers may choose to let that, if you will, let it ride and take a position with the IRS. That's part of our we don't give tax advice approach here, that's their call. But some of it, yes, we could see our taxpayers come back and say, I've changed my mind. I acted in haste and I want my money back.
Very good.
Mr. Hart?
Just to add to Mr. Lara's comments, we do have the accounting in place to handle this. And actually in prior years, and I think we've got something of a history with a small number of taxpayers who routinely prepay. So we've had the accounting in place for some time now.
And on that same line, there's been talk in neighboring states and, you know, towns and cities about trying to circumvent the federal tax law changes by doing things like creating, you know, charitable trusts and you know, characterizing local property tax payments as charitable deductions to obtain deductibility of that. Has the town been approached or given any thought to whether, you know, that's something that should be considered?
I can tell you that the article from the New York Times addressing that was forwarded to me, and I've looked at it, not with an eye towards doing a charitable trust. I think there are things that could be done under Connecticut law legally that would be a little bit convoluted, one-time only situations. You don't want to do something in an effort to help your residents in a one-time only situation that end up hurting you long-term.
So the question has been raised, but we haven't taken it further than that.
Okay. And if you know, did anybody try and prepay any taxes other than the July 18 payment? For example, did they try and prepay into the next tax year?
I couldn't tell you that.
Okay.
I don't believe so. I don't believe so. I didn't hear any reports to that effect.
Okay, thank you.
There's a point at which cash flow comes into, for most people, that becomes a significant issue.
For some people, Pat.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Laird. Thank you, Mr. Barnes. Anybody else? And we will be following up. Obviously, we're not alone in this, and there's going to be a lot of talk at CCM. Actually, Pat has a CAMA meeting next week, which he's going to, talk to other attorneys about their thoughts on this. So we will be apprised all along the way. And there's no rush on, we need to take our time to figure out, all the impact of it. Okay. With that, no more questions. We will do appointments. I move that we appoint Amanda Martin to the Substance Abuse Prevention Commission for a term ending 8/31/2020. Lorna Thomas Farquharson to the Substance Abuse Prevention Commission for a term ending 8/30/2020. And Phyllis Hyman to the West Hartford Bloomfield Health District for a term ending 12/31/2020. And Mr. Barnes has an appointment.
Can I join your motion
Yes.
to reappoint David Giordano to the Greater Hartford Transit District for a term ending 12/31/2021?
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. And number 16, let's see, 21.
Madam Mayor, I move adoption of the consent calendar.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. So number 22, Ms. Kerrigan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that we receive resignation from Paul Polu, resigning from the West Hartford Substance Abuse Prevention Commission.
Dave, right?
Dave, did I say Paul? I'm so sorry. Yes.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Dave, for your service. Number 23, Mr. Kerrigan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that we receive resignation from David Siegel, 12/8/2017, resigning from the Advisory Commission for Persons with Disabilities.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Also, thank you to David for your service. Number 24, Ms. Kerrigan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that we receive resignation from Jackie DeLude, 12/14/2017, resigning from the West Hartford Substance Abuse Prevention Commission.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Again, thank you, Jackie, for your service. No petitions. We do have an executive session. I make a motion. We move into executive session.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. We will be back.